What if the most powerful way to make a man chase you was to disappear? Not in a dramatic or manipulative way, but in silence. What if the secret wasn't in how much you gave, but in how little? What if your greatest strength lies not in texting him first, not in asking about his day, not even in checking if he viewed your stories, but in doing absolutely nothing at all? It sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? We're taught that connection requires effort, that love is built on interaction. But this is where Carl Jung's timeless wisdom breaks the mold. When you consciously pull back your energy, something powerful begins to happen. You no longer feed his ego with your availability. Instead, you uncover something deeper, his true intentions. This isn't a game. It's not manipulation. It's about reclaiming your inner power. Most women don't realize that being emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually accessible 24/7 can actually make them invisible. Not because they aren't valuable, but because constant presence robs a man of the one thing that triggers his pursuit, the chance to miss you. In psychology, Jung referred to this as projection. We pour our light into someone, hoping they'll reflect it back. But when that light dims, when we stop giving and start receiving, a shift occurs. Something wild, something primal. He begins to chase you, not out of strategy, but instinct. So even if you're multitasking, even if your attention drifts, let this video continue in the background, because your subconscious already understands what your heart has been quietly whispering. You've given too much for too long, and now it's his turn to show up. 1. Energetic power. Why ignoring works better than chasing. Here's a truth you rarely hear. Men don't fall in love when you give them everything. They fall in love when they feel the absence of what you once gave so freely. Let that sink in. Humans are wired to chase. Carl Jung once said, "What we chase reflects the unconscious parts of ourselves, a desire, a fear, or a wound." When you ignore a man in the right way, you stop being his emotional safety net. You become something far more powerful, a mystery his mind is desperate to understand. And mystery? It's magnetic. Chasing a man is almost always rooted in fear. The fear of losing him, the fear of being forgotten, the fear of not being enough. But the moment you stop reaching and start reflecting, something profound happens. You no longer orbit around him. You return to yourself. And in doing so, you become scarce. And scarcity always creates value. Have you ever noticed how the people who seem least interested often attract the most attention? It's not cruelty. It's not toxic. It's because they're not energetically needy. Their value isn't up for debate. That's energetic power. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Your absence becomes the message. When you chase him, you place him at the center of your universe. But when you pull back, you flip the dynamic. Suddenly, he's the one wondering, why isn't she texting anymore? Did I do something wrong? Is she seeing someone else? That's the moment you step into his thoughts, on repeat. It's not about playing cold, it's about directing your energy with intention. Instead of pouring it into someone who may not appreciate it, pour it into your peace, your growth, your silence. Because silence speaks louder than any "I miss you" you could send. And always remember, ignoring isn't cruel. It's clarity. You're simply no longer available for what doesn't nourish you. When you finally understand your worth, you don't need to convince anyone of it. You don't speak it, you live it. And that's when he starts to feel the emptiness you left behind. 2. Stop feeding his ego. The power of emotional absence. There's a quiet truth most men won't admit, but women often sense. Many men love being chased, not because they value you deeply, but because it feeds their ego. Every time you reply instantly, every time you check in, every time you break the silence first, you're not reconnecting, you're reinforcing his sense of control. And this is where Carl Jung's insight becomes crucial once again. He warned us that when we give too much of ourselves without receiving anything in return, we aren't being generous. We're being unconscious. We're acting from a pattern we don't even realize exists. A pattern not rooted in love, but in fear. And here's the most revealing part. Most men aren't narcissists, but many get used to the warmth of constant attention. And when that attention suddenly vanishes, something inside them panics. Because suddenly, you're not there to reflect back how great they feel. You're absent. And that absence, sharp, quiet, undeniable, is a direct challenge to his ego. He's no longer seeing himself through your admiration, your words, your eyes, and it's not necessarily you that he misses. It's the version of himself he saw when he was with you, the version that felt validated, important, chosen. When you withdraw, you're taking away his favorite mirror, and that absence becomes a test, one that many men quietly fail. Here's where things get revealing. If all he ever wanted was your attention, he'll vanish the moment he stops receiving it. He'll stop texting, stop calling, stop trying, because his ego can't survive without the applause. But if your presence meant something more, if you truly touched a deeper place within him, then your silence won't push him away. It'll pull him closer. Your absence becomes a filter. It separates those who truly care from those who simply craved control. Carl Jung said that we all wear masks, personas we show the world while hiding our raw, unpolished truths. When you're always available, you unknowingly feed the mask. You keep the performance alive. But when you stop giving that attention, when your silence becomes the only response, something happens. He can no longer rely on the surface version of himself. He's forced to face what's underneath. That discomfort he feels, that uncertainty, that's not about you, it's his ego cracking. And that is your power. So how do you stop feeding his ego without coming off as cold or cruel? You don't have to ghost him or play games. It's much simpler and far more effective. You don't reply right away. You don't initiate conversations. You don't explain your silence. You don't post stories just to see if he's watching. You let silence speak for you. You let mystery breathe. Because you're not here to beg for love. You're not here to convince a man of your value. The right man will recognize your worth in your presence, but he'll prove it through your absence. And when you stop giving so much, something beautiful begins. Your energy resets. You're no longer begging for crumbs. You become the whole table. You stop shrinking yourself just to stay in someone else's frame. And suddenly, the one who thought he had you secured realizes he may have already lost the best thing that ever happened to him. Third, the power of silence. When you ignore, you say more than you think. Many women have been taught that they must speak to be heard, that their value lies in explaining, proving, or defending their emotions. But as Carl Jung once said, the soul expresses itself in what is not said. And when you choose silence with a man, you're not retreating, you're communicating. You're saying more than words ever could. Silence isn't emptiness, it's tension, it's magnetic. It's the unanswered question that lingers in the back of his mind, and for a man who's become used to always knowing where he stands with you, this sudden stillness is like an alarm bell going off inside his chest. Now he can't predict you. Insisted, he doesn't know what you're thinking. And that uncertainty, it's maddening. Because what's constantly available is taken for granted, but what vanishes without explanation becomes an obsession. When you choose not to respond, not to react, not to fix or explain, you create a vacuum. And in that space he begins to question everything. Where did I go wrong? Why isn't she chasing me anymore? What changed? And in seeking those answers, he begins to understand something deeper. That he may have missed the emotional depth of your presence. That he took your warmth for granted. And through this reflection, something else begins to unfold. He starts to confront his emotional immaturity. He begins to wrestle with the very parts of himself he's tried to ignore. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the unconscious, hidden side we often run from. But when you walk away in silence, when you no longer engage, he has no choice but to face his own shadow. That ache in his chest, that discomfort, it's not your doing. It's his own reflection staring back at him. That's why your silence isn't punishment. It's revelation. Every unanswered message, every missed call, every moment you choose your peace over pleasing him. It's not cruelty. It's you saying clearly, I'm no longer playing this game. I've chosen myself. You don't need to block him. You don't need to leave him on read just to prove a point. You simply disappear in the calmest way possible, not to manipulate, not to retaliate, but to remind yourself that you're no longer the woman who chases someone who refuses to truly see her. Because when he finally feels that emptiness, he will respond, maybe with messages, maybe with passive-aggressive jabs, maybe even with anger. But don't mistake that noise for love. That's not love. That's his ego trying to reclaim what no longer belongs to him. And if he truly cares about you, he won't give up so easily. But this time, the power is yours. You get to decide if he's still worth it. Fourth, let him wonder how to create a void he wants to fill. One of the most graceful yet powerful things you can do is leave him with questions. Because when you're always available, always explaining, always fixing, he doesn't need to think, he doesn't need to wonder. You're doing the emotional labor for both of you. But when you stop, when you pull back without warning, when you offer no explanations, silence fills with questions. And that doubt, that curiosity, that whisper of why did she pull away, that's exactly what makes him come back. It's not always the absence of your presence that haunts him. It's the unanswered questions your silence leaves behind. Carl Jung once said, the unconscious moves through symbols, and when you quietly walk away, without drama, without over-explaining, without leaving clear signs, you don't just leave. You become a symbol, an enigma, something he can't quite understand, but suddenly, desperately wants to solve. Men don't chase what's predictable. They don't crave what's obvious. They chase what makes them think, what pulls at their psyche without offering easy answers. Think of it like this: if he knows you'll always be there, always responding, always available, there's no urgency to act. Why would he move when your presence has become a certainty? But the moment he notices a shift, subtle, quiet, but undeniable, something awakens within him. He feels it. You're no longer responding the same way. Your energy, once warm and inviting, now feels distant, restrained. And that's when it begins. He starts replaying your messages, been scrolling through old photos, overanalyzing your tone, wondering, did I do something wrong? That distance you created, that silence, it's not just empty space. It becomes a psychological weight on his chest. It unsettles him. He can't quite shake it. And like every human being wired for connection, he instinctively tries to close that gap. But here's the part most people get wrong. Don't be the one to fill it. Let him feel that void. Let him sit in the discomfort. Let him reach for you. Let him be the one to ask the questions, to take the first step, to show intention. Because the moment you rush back in with explanations, justifications, or attempts to clarify what he's feeling, you shatter the magic. You interrupt the emotional reset. You end the mystery. This isn't a game. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about clarity. About recognizing who is truly willing to move toward you without being coaxed or chased. If he begins to act, truly act, not out of panic but with purpose, not just to get your attention, but to reconnect with intention, then something real is unfolding. You're no longer chasing, you're receiving. And that's when everything changes. Your silence was the mirror, your absence, the message. And now, If he wants your presence again, he'll have to earn it. Because you're no longer here to be an option, a convenience, a quick fix for someone's wounded pride. You're here to be chosen, with intention. And if that means walking away with no words, no warnings, no grand exit, then that silence becomes the most profound act of self-love you've ever given yourself. When you disconnect, you shine the attraction of emotional distance. There is an undeniable beauty in the woman who walks away, not out of rage, not out of desperation, but out of alignment. She doesn't yell. She doesn't explain or beg or break down. She simply steps back, with grace. And it's not coldness. It's evolution. Carl Jung called it the process of individuation, the inner transformation when a person separates from the roles and expectations imposed by others and begins to reconnect with their true essence. That's what you're doing. When you decide to walk away from a man who doesn't give you what you deserve, you're beginning that sacred process. You stop searching for your value in his words. You stop measuring your worth by his responses. Instead, you start rediscovering your value within. And when that shift happens, everything changes. Your energy becomes different, lighter, stronger, magnetic. You're no longer the woman who waits around, hoping he changes. You're the woman who has already changed, quietly, powerfully, and without apology. And that shift doesn't need to be announced. You'll feel it. You'll sense it in the way you no longer react like you used to. He'll notice that your attention no longer revolves around his every move. And whether he says it or not, he'll feel the loss. Because this new version of you, the one who gets dressed up for herself, who laughs with no one watching, who goes to bed without checking her phone for his name, she is the most powerful version yet. She is centered. She is connected. She is whole. And the irony? The distance that once seemed like a loss becomes a magnet, a force he can't resist, because now you no longer need him. And that confidence, that radiant energy of self-containment, it's magnetic. Men feel it. Even if they don't understand it, they sense it. They smell it like a scent they can't name but can't stop chasing. Suddenly they miss you, desperately. Not because you left, but because you grew. They try to reach you, to pull you back, to reclaim the old version of you. But you've already outgrown that version. You've evolved. And here's what truly matters. You didn't walk away for him to come back. You walked away for you to come back to yourself. And if he does return, let it be because he has awakened to your value. Let it be because he truly wants to grow with you, not because his ego can't bear to lose control. Because you are not here to beg for love. You are here to attract it from your wholeness. So yes, disconnect not to punish him, but to reconnect with yourself. And you'll witness something powerful. Your light, the one no one can touch, will begin to attract exactly what you deserve. Set boundaries without saying a word. Many of us are taught that in order to set boundaries, we must explain them, justify them, repeat them. But the truth is, the most powerful boundaries are not spoken. They are lived. Carl Jung said that what is not integrated into our consciousness manifests as destiny. What does that mean? That if you don't become aware of your value, you'll keep attracting people who don't see it. It's a painful truth, but one that explains so much. When your worth is still conditional, waiting for recognition, for affection, for permission, you unconsciously allow people to treat you like an option. That's why the moment you decide to walk away, not with anger, not with tears, but with quiet certainty, you're setting a boundary more powerful than any words could ever express. No explanations, no final warnings. Just absence. Not replying to messages that carry no intention. Not accepting last-minute invitations that reek of convenience. Not rearranging your life for someone who only shows up when it suits them. Every one of those decisions says something loud and clear. With me, it's all or nothing. And that is the essence of self-respect. Because you can say I deserve more 1,000 times, but if your actions still accept the bare minimum, he won't believe you. Not because he's cruel, but because your energy tells him your love is negotiable. And real love isn't. Setting boundaries isn't always about the conversations we have. It's about the behavior we allow. It's not about long speeches. It's about consistency. If he texts you at his convenience and you respond instantly, that's your boundary. If he disrespects you openly, flirts with others, crosses lines, and you stay without requiring true change, that's your boundary too. Boundaries aren't what you say. They are what you tolerate. And when a man feels that he no longer has the same access to you, when he realizes your energy is no longer freely available, he senses the change, a shift. A line has been drawn, and that line is you. You're no longer available for second place. You're no longer staying in the shadows, waiting for him to finally see you. You're no longer begging for scraps of affection. And the most powerful part? You don't have to shout it. You just live it. That's what unsettles the male ego the most. A woman who leaves with no drama, no loud goodbye, no performance. Just calm disappearance. No demands. No explanation. Just an energy that says, I've outgrown this. And that kind of quiet strength, it leaves a mark. Because when a woman stops being available for less than she deserves, her absence says more than her presence ever could. Let him come to you, the final test of his true intentions. After everything you've done, every moment you showed up, supported, gave, forgave, isn't it time he does something for you? Carl Jung once said, when you stop acting from fear, you begin to see reality as it is. And that doesn't just apply to healing, it applies to love. When you stop being the one who always reaches out, when you stop being the one who makes excuses for him, when you stop being the one who keeps the connection alive, that's when the truth emerges. Is he here for you, or just for what you give? When you stop checking your phone, stop wondering what he's thinking, stop hoping he'll change. When your focus returns to your peace, your growth, your life, he feels it. The shift is unmistakable. And now he has two choices. And let you go, or go after you. And whatever he chooses tells you everything. The man who truly wants to stay, he stays. The man who wants to see you, he makes it happen. And the man who values you, he doesn't wait until your silence forces his attention. But to see his true colors, you must be still. Don't post stories to provoke him. Don't send subtle hints or play emotional chess. Just hold your silence. Because silence reveals truth in a way words never can. And if he genuinely cares, he'll come back, not with excuses, but with clarity. Not to regain control, but to rebuild connection. With intention, with presence, with effort. And if he doesn't come back, that's okay too. Because what you've gained is even more precious. The freedom to stop investing in someone who is never truly capable of loving you. When you make this final move, where you stop moving, everything shifts. You're no longer stuck in limbo, hoping for change. You're in command, in peace, in queen mode. And in that space, only what adds to your life is welcome. No more waiting, no more wondering. Only what aligns with your worth. If you've made it this far, it wasn't because of him. It was because of you. Because something in you is awakening. Something strong, unshakable. The woman who no longer settles. The woman who no longer gives everything out of fear. The woman who is finally, fully choosing herself. Carl Jung once said, "Don't hold on to those who walk away from you, so that those who want to come close can." This video isn't about making him chase you. It's about reminding you that you are worthy of being chosen freely, fully, and without conditions. And when you stopped chasing, that's when you start attracting everything you were meant for. Subscribe if you want more content that speaks of you and to you. Let me know in the comments what resonated most. And always remember, your silence is more powerful than you think. See you in the next one.